So when I started reading Mistborn Era 2, I was stunned by how much I really actually enjoyed the first book in the series, and I was not really sure why I understood the mixed reviews on Era 2. And then I read the second book and things kind of hit a little bit of a snag. We're going to talk about it now. Hey, what's up, bookworms and Lord Ruler Brandon Sanderson fans? Mike back again to talk more Mistborn Era 2, this time with the second book in the series, Shadows of Self by Brandon Sanderson. What I kind of talked about there in the intro was that I really loved Alloy of Law, and I did that review right here in case you missed it. And what really surprised me about it is, I've said I've never really been into the whole Western thing. I've never been into the whole steampunk, right, kind of the fantasy that brims right there on the edge of the Industrial Revolution. So I was stunned by how much I liked it. I said I got a lot of Firefly, Joss Whedon's Firefly out of it. And then the second book is the one where everybody was like, well, this one's kind of a little more iffy. And they were right. So what we're going to do here is non-spoilers. As always, with my Cosmere stuff, it's going to be non-spoilers going forward. If you haven't read Alloy of Law, there might be a couple things in there that I kind of hint at that you might consider a spoiler for that book. So I recommend going and watching that non-spoiler review if you haven't read any Mistborn Era 2 yet. I reviewed all the original Mistborn trilogy on the channel. You can catch that if you'd like to, and I'll talk about all those comparisons with this one. But let's get into it, and that starts with talking about what is it about. We pick up about a year plus after the events of the last book, and Wax and Wayne, they continued their roles as independent lawmen all through Elendil. All kinds of stuff going on there. They're still doing the same thing they did in the first one. Right off the bat, I'm comfortable. I'm having a good time here because they're just being the lovable duo that they were in the last book, right? Meanwhile, Marcy, the third part of that trinity, she's decided to try her hand at being a constable, so kind of doing it the traditional route. But while investigating the murder of a high-ranking government official's brother, they're led kind of on a case that goes deeper and deeper than they ever expected, right? And this leads them to dealing with the city of Elendil, which is dealing with corruption. And there's food shortages, there's unemployment, everything. So everything's just kind of hitting a bubbling point to the point of where the town's like about to riot and kind of thing. So we're dealing with that and a new enemy named Bleeder. And Wax is kind of forced to face the demons of his past as mysteries unravel. So that's kind of as non-spoilery as I could put it for you there. But that is kind of the setup for what this book is about. That leads us into what makes it good or bad. I apologize. The dang kids keep knocking on the door. But I did kind of say that I was not as enthused with this book as I was with part one. So usually this section, what makes it good or bad, I tell you basically everything I loved about the book. This one's more of a mixed bag, so I'm going to tackle the good first. I didn't like as much as Alloy of Law, and I know this is going to be a 4-book series eventually, but as of now, it's just the 3. So I started kind of thinking of it, well, is this kind of like middle book syndrome? Is this something that after I read the 3rd book, am I going to look back on this one as set up and be like, oh, okay, I appreciate it more now, because that happens a lot. So I'm trying to be fair on that part of it, but as a book on its own, the pacing of this one really got to me. But again, I want to talk about the good first. The good is that there are revelations that are uncovered about Wax's past relationship with Lessie that easily is the driving part, the meat of this book, if you will. All the things going on around them are interesting, but that is the big one. That is kind of what is leading us down this path. For me, the whole antagonist of this book didn't really land as much as I just wanted to know more about this relationship with Lessie, because we deal with some flashbacks and things like that, and it's good stuff. It's stuff that I felt like in the first book they kind of shortchanged us, because it just felt like okay, I didn't expect that, but it just felt like there was definitely some gaps to fill in, and Sanderson's doing that here, so that's a very good thing. I like that very much. Another thing I really like is that there was returning characters from the original trilogy. I've said that they treat these characters from the original trilogy almost like myth or legends. Basically, there's religions based off them and things like that, and that's also always really cool. There's towns and circles and streets and stuff named after characters. Little Easter eggs. That's what I just thought they were going to be. It was just like little Easter eggs. But we actually see a few characters kind of show back up in a way that you're not expecting. So let's put it that way. And I really, really appreciated that. It's kind of like when you went and saw The Force Awakens, and every time a classic Star Wars character showed up, the crowd would kind of clap a little bit, because it was like, hey, I remember you. I love this character. That's why I'm here, right? And also the action. I mean, the action is still written very well. I still think Allomancy is the most fun magic system that Brandon Sanderson has, and he still writes it in a way that is compelling while still adding new wrinkles to it. That is important. So it doesn't just get stale. He isn't just doing the same magic fights that he does every book. And that's why I think with some of the other magic systems he have, where I kind of got just kind of exhausted with them, this is the one I feel like he can tweak just enough and make different combinations and different abilities that it keeps it fresh. And this is no different. I feel like the action is, as always, I feel like he's a very cinematic writer. Like when I read his action sequences, I can just see it in my mind like I'm watching a big screen movie. So that does not suffer here at all. Continues to stay good. But Sanderson really has... I talked about the corruption, the political problems, and stuff like that in the middle of the book. And a lot of books, that would seem like filler. That would just seem like, oh God, you're just filling this up. You could just like tell me, hey, the town's in unrest, and just moved on. He finds this uncanny way to make this stuff interesting to me. I'm usually someone who's like, I don't need that. It's like my problem with Lies of Locke Lamora. I understood you were doing a long con, but I didn't need 60 pages about setting up this long con kind of thing. I feel like when other authors try to talk about political intrigue and corruption, and the villagers are going to riot, it just starts to be like, okay, let's get on with it. With him, I always feel like I'm glued to it. Except for Elantris, I always start to feel like I'm there. I can understand and sympathize with these people, what's going on, and understand why our heroes and villains do what they do. And again, that is every bit as good as it always is in this book. Now let's get to some of the things I did not like. I did not like that the trio was split up. I know that, again, if we're doing middle book syndrome, you have to let some of these characters split up to kind of let them grow. You're thinking, if I'm going to stick with the Star Wars analogy here, it's kind of like Empire Strikes Back, where you had to have Luke doing his own thing, and you had to have, everybody else doing theirs. I understood why he did it. I loved the three of them together, Wax, Wayne, and Marcy, so much in that first book, and that the fact that they share almost no scenes together in this book, except a couple of lines, that really made it suffer for me. So, I want my Trinity together. So I'm hoping in Bands of Mourning, we see the reunion tour with those three. Also, Wayne, very, very, very much seems like a side character. This book is wax heavy. Very, very wax heavy. And I like wax, but Wayne was my favorite part of that first book. And I wanted more of him. And it wasn't just because the jokes were good, but I liked a lot of things about the character. And I felt like he just kind of got sidelined in this one. And then when he did just show up, it was just to kind of, emo out about this situation about his past, which I like. I want to get more of his past, sure. But that's my heart and soul kind of this second series here, and I just felt like he really got a back seat in this one. So I'm hoping he makes a big return in the next book, at least way more to the forefront than he was in this one. Next, the new villain, Bleeder, just okay. Just okay. I liked Miles way better. Like I said, I liked Miles so much, I could have had like a novella backstory about Miles. I thought he was really, really awesome. OP in a way that wasn't just like, game breaking. It was good. It was a good setup. You felt like there was a living, breathing backstory between him and Wax. With this one, the revelation at the end, obviously that makes it matter a little more, but while I was reading it, I really wasn't that fascinated with it. So take that one for, your mileage is going to vary, I think, on that one. What else? I already talked about Wayne doesn't do much. The book does kind of drag for me until a certain OT, original trilogy, character shows up. And then you get your usual Sanderlanche. It's very good. It's a really good ending. As always, never anything bad to say about his endings. But man, it really did drag until that character showed up, and then it was really good. So it's really, as for a Sanderson book, it isn't really that long. It isn't like we're talking about a Stormlight book here or nothing like that. But I still felt like what I said about Firestarter by Stephen King. For a short book, it still felt like there was a lot of fluff in here, and that's unusual. I usually feel like everything Sanderson writes is for a reason. I never once felt like this in the original Mistborn trilogy was with this one. Now, if you've read the Bands of Mourning and you know about all the setups in this book, I haven't read Bands of Mourning yet, so that could still play into this. I'll revisit that when I do my review for Bands of Mourning, if it makes this book better or not. But that's kind of my thoughts on what makes it good or bad. Let's move on to why you should read it. I think if you enjoyed Alloy of Law, I think you might feel a little differently than me. I think that your mileage will vary on this one, depending on how you feel about the villain, how you feel about the characters being split up, how you feel about Marisy's new role in the story, which is much different than it was in the last book. Again, I think it's going to kind of be... I feel like it could go either way. It really could go either way with you. You could feel like I do, or you could completely feel the opposite. I mean, I know there's a lot of people, especially on the Discord, who have said that they think that Era 2 is by far superior to Era 1. After this book, I'm definitely disagreeing, because I enjoyed all three of those books immensely, and this one was just... I gave it a 3 out of 5, by the way. I take that for what it is. Again, but if you did not enjoy Alloy of Law, this is not going to be the book that changes your mind. This isn't going to be one that's going to be like, oh, okay, I get it now, and now I'm in. I definitely think it doubles down on a lot of things from the first book. For me, it just wasn't as much of a good time. And I'm not saying that my characters have to be happy. In fact, I go from the Joss Whedon school of characters, in that, you know, your heroes are happy, the story is good. Your heroes are miserable, the story is awesome, usually. So that's not it. I'm very classically trained in the Joss Whedon arts there. So I don't say I have to have my characters have nothing but happy, good times. I just did not enjoy myself as much as, and I really think it's because Wayne was really MIA for most of this book. Wax is super stoic, and when he doesn't have Wayne there to make him more fun and lovable, I just kind of feel like he can be dry sometimes. So, different strokes for different folks on that one, I think. Obviously, if you want to complete the Cosmere, or just complete Mistborn, sure, read it. I mean, it's only book 2 of 4. Things can definitely change. And I'm not saying that this is an unreadable book or something. I'm just saying I think my expectations were super high after how much I loved Alloy of Law. So that's kind of where I fall in it. Again, I don't know why Star Wars keeps coming up here. But in the end, I kind of felt about this book about how I did. I talked about Force Awakens, when you really like the new characters. And then when the old classic characters come up, you'd be happy to see them. And this one kind of felt like how I felt during Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, in that the only thing I'm really caring about is the old characters, and the new characters are just kind of at this point. I didn't get a lot out of that trio in this one that I got in the first one. So that was my big problem here. So I want my trio back together, I think, because when you split Han, Luke, and Leia up, I'm sorry about the Star Wars stuff. When you split Han, Luke, and Leia up, its story's not as good. I need my 3 together, so I'm hoping in Bands of Mourning they make a big comeback together and go on a nice little reunion tour. And that's it for the regular thing. I'm going to do a couple of spoiler thoughts here, just real brief, nothing crazy. Bleeder, or is it Payom or Palm? Don't listen to audiobooks, so I'm not sure how it was pronounced. Forgive me. I still say Eland, for God's sake. But her actually being Lessie the whole time was a nice twist that I actually did not see coming. I thought it for a second, and I was like, no, that's not. And then it was like, yeah, he went there. It was a sick mind fuck. I mean, seriously, I don't know what else to really call it. I mean, I understand Wax's super depression here at the end, because seriously, he had to watch the love of his life die twice by his hand. That's brutal, man. That is brutal, and Sanderson is beating the crap out of this character in a way that only Joss Whedon or Jim Butcher seems to know how. So I'm looking forward to that arc there. I think I may sound like I don't like Wax. I do like Wax. I like him better with Wayne. I feel like Wayne is the good complementary character that makes his character better. So I don't want to see him suffer like he is, and I'm hoping it either does 2 things. 1, it's a good redemptive arc, or 2, it's a good I don't give a F anymore, and I'm just going to shoot everything in my sight and go brutal with it. So either way, I'm on board. I'm on board there. To me, the books turned around really when Tensoon showed up. And I mean, I love Tensoon in the original trilogy, so that's not really fair. I started thinking about it. It's like, okay, all these characters from then are dead, obviously. Tensoon being the Conjurer, that's not the case. Obviously, Sazed as Harmony showing back up. That's cool. That's a welcome back. And I believe Marsh is still running around out there. So when you see those characters, it just kind of reminds you, yes, this is the same world. It isn't just, Easter eggs. It is actually connected, and it makes a lot of sense. And I'm hoping he keeps tying those characters back in, because I'd love to see them. And the fact that everybody tells me not to read Secret History until after I read Bands of Mourning makes me think Kelsier is going to show up somehow, somewhere. So we'll see. We'll see. What else? I think that's it. References to things like Pits of Haths and stuff like that. Really cool. Things I think that you wouldn't have to read the original trilogy to get them, but if you have, it really kind of clicks there. But guys, that's really all I have for this one. I know it's a little shorter than most of my Sanderson reviews. Again, I know I sound like I hated the book. I really didn't. For me, 3 out of 5 means that it was a really good book. It's just nothing that I'll ever like reread again. So I don't think Sanderson can write a bad book, but this is probably my least favorite besides Elantris. So, but that I've read. And I've only read Cosmere stuff. I haven't read any non-Cosmere stuff, so I'm not counting about the Star Song or whatever it's called, or Reckoners, or any of that stuff. Just as Cosmere stuff. That's Stormlight, Mistborn, Warbreaker, Elantris. Yeah, this is probably my second least favorite Sanderson book. But again, Sanderson couldn't write a bad book if he tried, and I will stick by that until I die. So that's it, guys. Mistborn Era 2, Shadows of Self. What did you think? Drop in the comments. Let me know. As always, no wrong answers. I look forward to talking to you there.